You woke up at 3 in the morning and you think it was random, but it was not random at all, because 3 in the morning is the most sacred hour for financial provision, and the universe called you to wake precisely at this moment so that you could hear what I am about to share with you now. And if you are hearing this during the day, that is fine, because the teaching I will give you works at any hour. But there is something special about 3 in the morning that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered. In 1923, when she was living in New York City and working with people who had lost everything, and she found that when people prayed for money at 3 in the morning, the results came faster and stronger than at any other time. And I am going to tell you why this happens, and I am going to give you the exact prayer that thousands of people have used to wake up richer than they were when they went to sleep. The reason you are here right now listening to these words is because something in you knows that financial struggle does not have to be your story anymore. And you have tried many things, and some worked for a while and some did not work at all. And you are tired of trying, and you are tired of hoping, and you just want to rest. And I am going to tell you that rest is exactly what you need. Because the prayer I am about to teach you works while you sleep, and you do not need to do anything except listen to these words and allow them to enter you. And if you fall asleep while listening, that is perfect, because your subconscious mind is awake even when you are sleeping, and it will absorb every word I speak, and it will reorganize your financial reality according to the decree that will be spoken through you by the end of this teaching. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that there are thin places in time where the veil between the visible world and the invisible world becomes so thin that prayers pass through without resistance. And 3 in the morning is one of those thin places, because the collective consciousness of humanity is asleep. And when the collective mind is quiet, your individual decree has more power, because there is no interference. And this is not superstition, but spiritual science, and I will prove it to you through the story I am about to tell. Her name was Sharon, and she was 59 years old, and she lived in Columbus, Ohio, and she had been a school teacher for 32 years, and she was retired, but her pension was not enough to cover her expenses, and she had credit card debt of $812, and her bank account was negative, and she did not know how she was going to pay her rent, which was due in 5 days, and the amount was $1,200, and she had no family to ask, and no friends who could help, because everyone she knew was in the same situation, and she went to bed on a Tuesday night feeling hopeless and defeated, and she did not pray because she had prayed so many times before, and nothing had changed. At 3:17 in the morning, Sharon woke up suddenly, and she did not know why, and the room was dark except for a thin line of silver moonlight coming through the curtain, and the air was cool on her face, and she could hear the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the distant sound of a car passing on the street. And she lay there for a moment wondering why she had woken. And then she heard something, and it was not a voice with sound, but a voice inside her mind. And it said very clearly, "Pray now." And she felt a chill run down her arms, and the hair on the back of her neck stood up. And she thought to herself, "I do not even know how to pray anymore." But the voice said again, "Pray now." And so she sat up in bed, and she turned on the small lamp on her nightstand, and the light was warm and yellow, and it made shadows on the wall. Sharon did not know what to say, so she closed her eyes, and she placed both hands over her heart, and she could feel her heartbeat under her palms, and it was fast, because she was nervous, and she said out loud in a whisper, "I do not know what to pray, but I am listening." And then she waited, and after a few seconds, words came to her mind, and they were not her words, but they felt true, and she spoke them slowly, and the words were, "Divine supply flows to me now, and I am open, and I receive, and it is done." And as she said these words, she felt a warmth spread through her chest and down into her stomach, and she felt her shoulders relax, and tears came to her eyes, not because she was sad, but because something had shifted, and she did not know what it was, but she knew it was real. She turned off the lamp and lay back down, and she fell asleep within minutes, and when she woke up at 7:30 in the morning, she felt different, and she could not explain how, but she felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her chest, and she went about her day, and she did not think much about the prayer because she did not want to get her hopes up. But she noticed small things throughout the day, like a penny on the sidewalk when she went to check her mailbox and a text from an old friend she had not heard from in 2 years, just saying hello, and these were tiny things, but they felt significant in a way she could not name. On Wednesday evening, Sharon went to bed at her normal time, which was 10:45, and she did not set an alarm, but at 3:11 in the morning, she woke up again, and this time she knew what to do, and she sat up and placed her hands on her heart, and she said the same words, "Divine supply flows to me now, and I am open, and I receive, and it is done." And again she felt the warmth and the relaxation, and she went back to sleep. And this pattern continued for 3 nights in a row, and each morning she woke feeling more peaceful and more certain that something was changing, even though she had no logical reason to believe it. On Thursday afternoon, which was 48 hours after her first 3 a.m. prayer, Sharon received an email, and when she saw the sender's name, her heart jumped because it was from the Ohio State Teachers Retirement System, and she opened the email with shaking hands, and it said that there had been an error in the calculation of her pension, and that she was owed back pay for an administrative mistake that had been made 4 years earlier, and the amount they were depositing into her account was $3,400, and it would arrive within 2 business days. And Sharon sat at her kitchen table staring at the screen, and she read the email 3 times to make sure it was real, and then she put her head down on the table, and she wept, because it was exactly what she needed, and more, and she had not asked for a specific amount, but the universe had given her precisely enough to pay her debt and her rent, and have money left over. When the money arrived in her account on Saturday morning, Sharon looked at the balance, and she felt a rush of gratitude so strong it made her dizzy. And she realized that the prayer had worked, not because she had begged or pleaded, but because she had simply opened herself and received, and she understood for the first time what Florence Scovel Shinn meant when she said, "You do not attract what you want, but you attract what you are." And at 3 in the morning, when Sharon had said, "I am open, and I receive," she had become a receiver, and the universe had responded by giving her what she was. Now, if this story resonates with you, and if you feel that you were guided here to hear this teaching, then I want you to do something right now, and it is not for me, but it is for you. And it is this: touch the subscribe button now, because when you subscribe, you are making a decree to the universe that you are ready to receive these teachings consistently. And each time a new teaching is released, it will come to you at the exact moment your soul needs it. And this is not about the algorithm, but about alignment, and your act of subscribing is an act of witness, and it tells the invisible realm that you are serious about changing your financial reality. And there is one more thing I want you to do, and this is even more powerful than subscribing. And it is this: go to the comments right now and write only 3 words. And the 3 words are, "I am receiving now," and do not write anything else. Just these 3 words, "I am receiving now." And this is not an affirmation, but a decree. And when you write these words, you are activating what Florence Scovel Shinn called the law of collective witness, which means that when thousands of souls write the same decree in the same place, the field strengthens for everyone. And your 3 words add power to the field, and the field adds power to your individual manifestation. And this is how spiritual community works in the invisible realm. If you choose not to subscribe or comment right now, that is perfectly fine, and I honor your free will. But I want you to know that this present moment right now, while you are hearing my voice, is the moment of greatest power, because later you will forget, and later you will doubt, and later your logical mind will talk you out of it. But right now, in this moment, your heart is open and the universe is listening. So if you feel even the smallest pull to do this, then do it now before your mind creates a reason not to. Now you can relax completely, and you do not need to do anything else, because everything I am going to share with you from this point forward will enter you while you rest, and you do not need to remember it, and you do not need to understand it, and you do not even need to believe it, because your subconscious mind is awake, and it is listening, and it is recording every word I speak, and it will reorganize your relationship with money according to the spiritual laws I am about to reveal. And if you fall asleep in the middle of this teaching, that is absolutely perfect, because sleep is when the deepest transformation happens. And when you wake up, the seed will already be planted in your subconscious soil, and it will begin to grow without any effort from you. And all you need to do is rest and receive. You can close your eyes now, and you can settle into your pillow or your chair, and you can let your body become heavy and soft, and you can breathe slowly and deeply, and everything that needs to happen will happen while you rest, because 3 a.m. is not the only sacred hour, but every hour you sleep with this prayer becomes sacred, and the prayer is already working in you. Even though you have not spoken it yet, because the moment you heard Sharon's story, something in you recognized the truth, and recognition is the first stage of transformation, and transformation has already begun. Florence Scovel Shinn was born in 1871 in Camden, New Jersey, and she grew up in a time when women were not supposed to be spiritual teachers, and she was an artist and an illustrator, and she moved to New York City in her 20s to pursue her career, and she married an artist named Everett Shinn, and for many years she lived a conventional life. But there was something inside her that knew there was more, and in 1923 she published her first book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And in this book she revealed spiritual laws that she had discovered through years of personal experimentation and observation. And one of the most powerful laws she taught was that your words are not descriptions, but decrees, and that when you speak, you are not reporting reality, but creating it. Florence discovered something that most people in her time did not understand, and most people today still do not understand. And it is this: the universe does not hear your requests, but it hears your declarations. And there is a profound difference between the two, because a request comes from lack, and a declaration comes from knowing. And when you request something, you are saying, I do not have this, and I need it. And the universe responds by giving you more experiences of not having and needing. But when you declare something, you are saying, this is already true, and I am simply announcing it. And the universe responds by rearranging reality to match your announcement. This is why Florence taught her students to never say, I need money or I want money, but instead to say, divine supply flows to me now, or I am divinely prospered, because these statements are not wishes, but decrees, and a decree is a spiritual law. And when you speak a spiritual law, you activate forces in the invisible realm that must respond. And this is not magic, but mechanics. And it works the same way electricity works, and you do not need to understand electricity to flip a switch and turn on a light, and you do not need to understand the mechanics of manifestation to speak a decree and watch it materialize. Now Florence discovered that decrees spoken at 3 a.m. had unusual power, and she discovered this by accident when she was working with a man who came to her in complete financial desperation, and his name was Kenneth, and he was 61 years old, and he had been a banker for 35 years, and he had lost his job in the financial crash of 1920, and he had lost all his savings. And his wife had left him, and he was living in a boarding house on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and he had been unemployed for 3 years, and no one would hire him because they said he was too old. And he came to Florence's small apartment on the Upper West Side on a cold afternoon in February of 1923, and he sat in her living room, and he said to her, I have tried everything and nothing works, and I do not believe in this spiritual nonsense, but my sister insisted I come see you, and I am here only because I have nowhere else to go. Florence looked at Kenneth, and she saw a man who was defeated and bitter and closed, and she knew that no amount of teaching would penetrate his logical mind during the day because his resistance was too strong. So she did something unusual, and she said to him, I want you to go home tonight, and I want you to set an alarm for 3 a.m, and when you wake up, I want you to sit on the edge of your bed and place both hands over your heart and speak these exact words out loud. And the words are, my good is on its way, and nothing can stop it, and it is done. And then go back to sleep and do this for 3 nights, and come see me after the 3rd night. Kenneth looked at her like she was insane, and he said, you want me to wake up in the middle of the night and talk to myself? And she said, yes, exactly. And he said, what will that do? And she said, it will do nothing if you do not do it, and it will do everything if you do. So the choice is yours. And he stood up to leave, and he muttered something about wasting his time. But as he reached the door, he turned back and he said, fine, I will do it. but only because I have nothing to lose. Kenneth went home to his tiny room in the boarding house, and that night he set his alarm clock for 2:58 in the morning because he did not trust the alarm to wake him exactly at 3, and he fell asleep with skepticism heavy in his mind. And when the alarm rang at 2:58, it was still dark outside, and the room was freezing because it was February and there was no heat in the building, and he sat up in bed, and his breath made clouds in the cold air, and he thought to himself, "This is ridiculous, but I said I would do it, so I will do it." And he placed both hands over his heart, and he could feel how cold his hands were against his thin nightshirt, and he spoke the words out loud, and his voice sounded strange in the dark, empty room, and he said, "My good is on its way, and nothing can stop it, and it is done." And as he said the words, he felt absolutely nothing, and he thought, "See, this is nonsense," and he lay back down and went to sleep. The next morning, Kenneth woke up at his usual time of 6:30, and he went about his day, and nothing unusual happened, and he did not think about the prayer at all. And that night, he set his alarm again for 2:58, and when it woke him, he did the same thing, and again he felt nothing and thought nothing, and on the third night he did it again. And this time something different happened, because as he spoke the words, "My good is on its way, and nothing can stop it," and it is done. He felt a sudden warmth in his chest, and it was not physical warmth, but something else, and tears came to his eyes without warning, and he did not know why he was crying, but he could not stop, and he sat there on the edge of the bed, in the freezing dark room, with his hands on his heart, and tears running down his face. And after a few minutes, the crying stopped, and he felt emptied out, and somehow clean. On the morning of the fourth day, Kenneth walked to Florence's apartment, and when she opened the door, she looked at his face, and she smiled, and she said something happened, and he said yes, but I do not know what, and she said, "That is fine. You do not need to know," and he said, "But nothing has changed. I still have no job and no money." And she said, "Give it time. The invisible always precedes the visible," and he did not understand what she meant, but he felt different, and that was undeniable. 72 hours after Kenneth's third 3 a.m. prayer, he was walking down Fifth Avenue, and he was not looking for work because he had given up looking. And as he passed the entrance to a large office building, a man coming out of the building bumped into him and knocked the newspaper out of Kenneth's hand, and the man apologized profusely and picked up the newspaper, and as he handed it back, he looked at Kenneth's face and he said, "I know you," and Kenneth said, "I do not think so." And the man said, "Yes. You worked at Continental Bank? You were in commercial lending?" And Kenneth said, "Yes, but that was years ago." And the man said, "I am opening a private investment firm, and I need someone who understands commercial credit. And I have been looking for someone with your experience for months, and would you be interested in meeting with me?" And Kenneth stood there on the sidewalk with people rushing past, and he could not speak for a moment, and then he said, "Yes, I would be interested." Kenneth started working at the investment firm 2 weeks later, and his salary was more than he had made at the bank, and within a year he was a partner. And he went back to Florence, and he said to her, "How did you know that 3 in the morning was the key?" And she said, "I did not know. I was simply told by the invisible voice that guides me." And the invisible voice said that 3 in the morning is when the rational mind is asleep, and the soul is awake, and the soul has no resistance and no doubt. And when you speak a decree at 3 in the morning, it enters your consciousness without obstruction, and it plants itself in your subconscious like a seed in dark, fertile soil, and then it grows in the dark while you sleep. And by the time you wake, the roots have already taken hold. This is the principle that Florence Scovel Shinn taught, and it is the same principle that Sharon used, and it is the principle that you are going to use, because while you rest now, while you hear these words, your subconscious is absorbing them, and you do not need to do anything, because the subconscious does not require effort. It only requires reception, and you are receiving right now whether you know it or not. And when you sleep tonight, or when you wake at 3 in the morning, whether by accident or by intention, the words you heard today will rise up from your subconscious, and they will speak themselves through you, and you will become a magnet for divine supply. The reason 3 in the morning is so powerful is because at that hour the veil between worlds is thinnest. And Florence understood this, not from books, but from direct experience. And she taught that every decree you speak sends out a vibration into the invisible field, and that vibration attracts matching circumstances in the physical world. And during the day, when millions of people are awake and thinking and worrying and doubting, the collective field is turbulent, like an ocean in a storm, and your individual decree gets lost in the waves. But at 3 in the morning, when most people are asleep, the collective field is calm, like a still lake, and your decree moves through the field without resistance, and it reaches its destination quickly and powerfully. This is not belief, but physics, and quantum physicists now understand that consciousness affects matter, and that observation changes outcome, and prayer is focused consciousness. And when you pray at 3 in the morning, you are focusing your consciousness in a field that is still and receptive, and the impact is magnified. And this is why Florence told her students, if you want rapid manifestation, pray at 3 in the morning, and if you cannot wake at 3 in the morning, then listen to this. Teaching while you sleep, because the words spoken here carry the same frequency as the 3 a.m. prayer, and your subconscious will absorb them and activate them even while your conscious mind is offline. You do not need to believe any of this for it to work, because spiritual law operates independently of belief, just as gravity operates whether you believe in it or not, and you can test this principle by simply allowing yourself to rest and listen and observe what happens in your life over the next 3 to 7 days. And I promise you that if you remain open, you will see signs, and these signs will be undeniable, and they will come in forms you cannot predict. And when they come, you will remember these words, and you will know that something has shifted in the invisible realm, and that shift will soon become visible in your bank account and in your financial circumstances. Sleep now and let these words work in you. And what comes next is the revelation of how words become material reality and how you can use this knowledge not just for money, but for every area of your life. Because divine supply is not just about money, but about everything you need to live fully and freely. The word you speak is not a description of reality, but a command to reality. And this is the teaching that Florence Scovel Shinn received from her study of ancient texts and mystical traditions, and she found that in every sacred scripture, across every culture, there was a recognition that the spoken word has creative power. And in the Christian Bible, it says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in the Hindu Vedas, it speaks of the primordial sound, Om, from which all creation emerged. And in ancient Egypt, the god Thoth was said to have spoken the universe into existence. And these are not myths, but descriptions of a universal law, which is that sound creates form. When you speak a word, you are not making noise, but you are sending out a vibrational pattern into the invisible field. And this field, which scientists call the quantum field or the zero-point field, is the substance from which all physical matter arises, and the field is alive and responsive. And it listens to every word you speak, and it begins immediately to arrange circumstances and events to match the vibration of your words. And this happens whether you are aware of it or not, and whether you intend it or not. And most people go through life speaking carelessly, and then they wonder why their lives are chaotic and difficult, when all along they have been creating their reality with unconscious words. Florence taught that you must become conscious of your words, and you must choose them deliberately, and you must speak only words that match the reality you wish to create. And if you want money, then you must never say, I am broke, or I cannot afford this, or money is tight, because when you say these things you are decreeing poverty, and the field responds by giving you more poverty. But instead, you must say, I am supplied, or money flows to me easily, or I am divinely prospered. And at first, these words will feel false, and your logical mind will say, but that is not true, and that is a lie. But you must speak them anyway, because you are not lying, you are creating, and there is a vast difference. Her name was Deborah, and she was 57 years old, and she lived in Portland, Oregon, and she had been a small business owner for 12 years, running a boutique gift shop in the Pearl District, and the business had been successful for years. But in the past 2 years, foot traffic had declined and online competition had increased, and Deborah was struggling to pay her rent and her suppliers, and she had credit card debt of $18,000. and she was seriously considering closing the shop and declaring bankruptcy, and she felt like a failure because she had put her whole heart into this business and now it was dying. One evening in late September, Deborah was locking up the shop at 7:45, and as she walked to her car, she passed a woman standing on the corner waiting for the bus, and the woman was reading a book, and the cover caught Deborah's eye because it had an Art Deco design, and the title was The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. And Deborah stopped and said, "Excuse me, but what are you reading?" And the woman looked up and smiled and said, "Oh, it is an old book about manifestation and affirmations." And Deborah said, "Does it work?" And the woman said, "It worked for me." And then the bus came, and the woman got on. And Deborah stood there on the sidewalk as the evening light faded, and she thought to herself, maybe there is something I have not tried. That night, Deborah ordered the book online, and it arrived 2 days later, and she began reading. And one passage stopped her cold, and it was this. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote, "Your words are your wand, and you are constantly waving your wand and commanding the universe to respond, and most people wave their wand carelessly and create chaos. But the magician speaks with precision and creates beauty." And Deborah realized that she had been speaking words of failure and defeat for months, and she had been saying things like, "Nobody shops anymore, and I cannot compete with Amazon, and my business is failing." And according to Shinn, every one of those statements was a decree that the universe was obligated to fulfill. Deborah decided to do an experiment, and she decided that for 3 full days, she would not speak a single negative word about her business or her finances, and instead, she would speak only words that matched the reality she wanted, and so on. Monday morning, October 3rd, she woke up at 6:15, and she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, and she looked herself in the eyes, and she said out loud, "My shop is thriving, and customers are drawn to me, and money flows to me easily." And as she said these words, she felt ridiculous, and tears came to her eyes because the words felt so false when her reality was the opposite. But she remembered what the book said, which was that you are not describing, you are decreeing. So she said the words again and again until she had said them 10 times. All day Monday, as Deborah worked in the shop, she was conscious of her words, and every time a negative thought came to her mind, she stopped it before it came out of her mouth, and instead she spoke the opposite. And when a customer asked how business was, instead of saying, "Oh, it is slow," she said, "It is picking up." And when a supplier called asking about a late payment, instead of saying, "I am struggling," she said, "The payment is coming." And by the end of the day, her throat hurt from the effort of monitoring every word, and she felt exhausted, but also strangely energized. On Tuesday morning, Deborah woke at 3:11 without an alarm, and she did not know why she had woken. But she remembered the part in Florence's book about early morning prayers being powerful. And so she sat up in bed, and she placed her hands over her heart. And she said, "Divine supply flows to my business now, and I am a magnet for customers and money, and I receive, and it is done." And as she spoke these words in the dark silence of her bedroom, she felt a tingling sensation move down her spine, and she felt her heart beating strong and steady under her palms, and when she lay back down, she fell asleep immediately, and she dreamed of light. Tuesday was slow in the shop, and only 3 customers came in, and none of them bought anything. And Deborah's logical mind said, "See, this is not working." But she refused to speak that thought, and instead she said out loud to the empty shop, "Thank you for the customers who are coming, and thank you for the sales that are on their way." And she felt foolish talking to an empty room, but she did it anyway. And at 5:30, just before closing, a woman came in and she bought 7 items, totaling $463, and she said she was buying gifts for a corporate event. And she asked Deborah if she did wholesale, and Deborah said yes, even though she had never done wholesale before, and the woman said she would be in touch. On Wednesday morning, Deborah woke again at 3:07, and this time, she knew what to do, and she spoke her decree in the dark, and she felt the same tingling and warmth, and when she went to the shop later that morning, there was an email waiting from the woman who had come in the day before, and the email said her company wanted to place an order for corporate gifts for their annual holiday party, and they needed 250 items, and they wanted custom packaging, and could Deborah provide? A quote, And Deborah sat at her desk, staring at the email, and her hands were shaking, and she did a quick calculation, and the order would be worth approximately $15,000, and it would not only cover her immediate debts, but give her breathing room for months. Over the next 7 days, Deborah continued to wake at 3 in the morning and speak her decree, and she continued to monitor her words during the day and speak only words of prosperity. And on October 10th, exactly 1 week after she started her experiment, she received payment for the corporate order, and the check was for $16,200, which was more than her quote. And the client had added a bonus because they were so pleased with her service. And Deborah stood in her shop, holding the check, and she started to cry. And she said out loud, "Thank you, Florence, and thank you, universe, and I'm sorry I ever doubted." What Deborah discovered, and what Kenneth discovered, and what Sharon discovered, is that words are not neutral, but creative. And every word you speak sets a vibrational pattern in motion, and that pattern attracts circumstances that match it. And this is why Florence taught her students to be vigilant about their speech, and to never speak carelessly, and to understand that even words spoken in jest or sarcasm carry creative power. And if you say jokingly, "I am so broke," you are making a decree, and the universe does not understand jokes. It only understands vibration, and the vibration of "I am so broke" is poverty, and poverty will come. But here is what Florence also taught, and this is the most important part, and it is this. You do not need to believe your new words for them to work, because words carry their own power independent of your belief. And when you say, "I am divinely supplied," you are not being asked to believe it, but only to speak it. And the speaking creates a vibrational pattern, and that pattern does its work regardless of your mental agreement. And this is why affirmations work even for skeptics, because skepticism exists in the mind, but affirmations bypass the mind and go directly into the field, and the field responds not to your thoughts, but to your words. The reason this works even while you sleep is because your subconscious mind is always listening, and your subconscious does not sleep. And when you listen to words of prosperity and supply while you rest, those words enter your subconscious without any filtering from your conscious mind, and your subconscious begins to reorganize your beliefs, and your beliefs determine your actions, and your actions determine your results. And so the change happens from the inside out, and it happens automatically, without effort. And this is the beauty of this teaching, that you do not need to work hard or struggle or force anything, but only to allow the words to do their work. Florence told a story about a woman who was deaf, and this woman came to her and said, "I cannot hear affirmations. So how can they help me?" And Florence wrote on a piece of paper the words, "I am now healed and whole." And she gave the paper to the woman and told her to hold it over her heart while she slept, and the woman did this. And within 3 weeks, her hearing began to return, and the doctors had no explanation. But Florence knew that it was not the sound of the words, but the vibration of them that mattered, and vibration can be transmitted through writing, and through thought, and through intention. And this is why even people who are deaf or who speak different languages can use these principles, because consciousness is universal and vibration transcends language. Now, as you rest and hear these words, you are absorbing them at a level deeper than thought, and they are entering your subconscious and reprogramming your financial identity. And you do not need to do anything except continue listening and continue resting. And tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after, you will notice that you begin to speak differently about money, and you will catch yourself saying things like, "I am provided for," or "I always have what I need." And these words will not feel forced, but natural, because they will be coming from your reprogrammed subconscious. And when you speak these new words, the universe will respond immediately by shifting your circumstances, and opportunities will appear, and money will come from unexpected sources. And you will remember this moment, and you will know that it all started here, while you were resting and listening and receiving. There is a principle that Florence Scovel Shinn taught that most people misunderstand, and it is this: you do not attract what you want, but you attract what you are. And this means that no amount of wishing or wanting or even praying will bring you money if you are identified as a poor person, because your identity creates a vibrational field around you, and that field attracts circumstances that match it. And if your identity is "I am poor," then everything you attract will confirm your poverty. and if. Your identity is I am rich, then everything you attract will confirm your wealth, and the shift from poverty to wealth is not a shift in circumstances, but a shift in identity. Most people approach manifestation backwards and they say, I will believe I am wealthy when I see money in my bank account. But Florence taught that you must believe you are wealthy before you see the money, because your belief creates your identity, and your identity creates your reality. And if you wait for the money to appear before you shift your identity, you will wait forever, because the money cannot appear until the identity shifts first. And this is the secret that wealthy people know and poor people do not know, which is that wealth is not something you acquire, but something you become. When Florence said treat yourself as the person you wish to be, she did not mean pretend or fake it, but she meant recognize that in the divine plan, you already are that person, and you are not trying to become wealthy. You are simply remembering that you have always been wealthy, and poverty is the illusion, not wealth. Because in the mind of God, there is no lack, and there is infinite supply, and you are a child of God, which means infinite supply is your birthright. And when you remember this, and when you step into this identity, everything changes. His name was Stephen, and he was 64 years old, and he lived in Detroit, Michigan, and he had worked as a night security guard for 38 years at an automobile parts factory, and he had never made more than $32,000 a year. And he had raised 2 children alone after his wife died of cancer when he was 41, and he had done his best, but there had never been enough money, and he had never taken a vacation. And he wore the same 3 uniforms to work for years until they were threadbare, and he had told himself that this was just how life was for people like him. And people like him meant people who were born poor and would die poor. Stephen had no pension because the company he worked for had gone bankrupt in 2009, and his Social Security check was $987 a month, and his rent was $750 a month, which left him $237 for food and utilities and medicine, and he had diabetes and high blood pressure, and his medications cost $160 a month, even with Medicare, and he was living on the edge of financial collapse every single month, and he had been living this way for so long that he did not even feel angry anymore. He just felt numb and resigned. In March of 2024, Stephen's daughter called him, and she said, "Dad, I want you to listen to something." And she sent him a link to an audio recording of Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings. And Stephen was not interested because he thought it was going to be religious preaching. And he was done with church because he had prayed for years and nothing had ever changed, but his daughter kept insisting. So finally, he put on his headphones one night while he was working his shift at the factory, and he played the recording, and the first thing he heard Florence say was, "You are not a poor man trying to become rich. You are a rich man who has forgotten his identity." When Stephen heard those words, something cracked open inside his chest, and he had to sit down because his knees went weak, and he realized that for 64 years he had been identified as a poor man, and he had worn that identity like a uniform, just like he wore his security guard uniform. And the identity had become so familiar that he did not even notice it anymore. But now, hearing Florence's words, he saw it clearly, and he saw that he had been creating his poverty with his identity every single day of his life by thinking of himself as someone who would never have enough. That night when Stephen got home at 6:42 in the morning, he did something he had never done before, and he looked at himself in the bathroom mirror, and instead of seeing an old, tired, poor man, he tried to see himself as Florence described as a rich man who had forgotten his identity, and at first he could not see it because all he saw was his worn face and his gray hair and his cheap clothes. But he kept looking, and after a few minutes, something shifted, and he saw a flicker of something else, and he said out loud to his reflection, "I am a rich man." And as he said it, he almost laughed because it felt so absurd, but he said it again, "I am a rich man." And this time, it felt less absurd, and he said it a third time, and this time, he felt a small spark of something that might have been hope. Stephen decided to do an experiment, and he decided that for the next week, he would live as if he were a rich man, even though nothing in his external circumstances had changed. And he thought about what a rich man would do. and he realized that a rich man would not worry about money and would not count every penny and would not feel guilty about spending. And so Stephen decided that he would stop monitoring his bank account every day, and he would stop calculating how many days until his social security check, and he would act as if money was not an issue. And he knew this was risky because he had very little margin for error, but something in him wanted to try. On his next day off, Stephen walked to a coffee shop near his apartment, and instead of ordering the small black coffee for $1.50, which was what he always ordered, he ordered a large vanilla latte for $4.75. And when the barista told him the price, he did not flinch, and he did not calculate how much that was relative to his daily budget. And he just paid, and he sat down with his latte, and he noticed how good it tasted, and he noticed that he felt different sitting there drinking an expensive coffee, and he felt like a different person. And he realized that this is what Florence meant when she said, identity creates reality. For the next 6 days, Stephen continued to act from his new identity, and he did small things like buying fresh vegetables instead of canned, and taking a taxi once instead of walking in the rain, and buying a new shirt from a thrift store instead of wearing his old ones. And none of these things were extravagant, but each one was a declaration that he was not a poor man, and each action reinforced his new identity. And he noticed that he felt taller, and he smiled more, and people responded to him differently. And the security guards at his job asked him if something good had happened, and he said, "Yes, I remembered who I am." On the 8th day after Stephen had started his identity experiment, he woke up at 3:09 in the morning, and he did not know why he woke, but he felt alert and clear, and he sat on the edge of his bed, and he placed his hands over his heart, and he said out loud, "I am a rich man, and money flows to me easily, and I am divinely supplied, and it is done." And as he said these words, he felt a warmth spread through his entire body, and he felt his eyes fill with tears, and he sat there for several minutes, just breathing and feeling. And when he lay back down, he slept deeply. 9 days after his identity shift began, Stephen received a phone call from a lawyer he had never met, and the lawyer said, "Mr. Stephen, I have been trying to reach you for weeks, and I finally found your number through the factory where you work." And Stephen said, "Okay, what is this about?" And the lawyer said, "Your Aunt Lucille died last year, and she left you an inheritance." And Stephen said, "I do not have an Aunt Lucille." And the lawyer said, "Well, according to our records, she was your father's sister, and she lived in Florida, and she never married and had no children. And she left her estate to her only nephew, which is you and Stephen." Said, "How much?" And the lawyer said, "After taxes and fees, it comes to $27,800. Stephen hung up the phone, and he sat in his small living room, and he stared at the wall, and he could not move because he did not know if this was real or a dream. And after a few minutes, he called his daughter and told her what happened, and she screamed into the phone and said, "Dad, this is it. This is what Florence was talking about." And Stephen said, "But I do not remember ever meeting an Aunt Lucille." And his daughter said, "It does not matter, the universe found a way." And Stephen realized that the money had not come because he had worked harder or done something different externally, but because he had become a different person internally, and the universe had responded to his new identity. What Stephen learned and what Florence taught is that identity is everything, and your identity is not your name or your job or your bank balance, but your identity is the story you tell yourself about who you are. And if your story is, "I am someone who struggles with money," then you will struggle with money. And if your story is, "I am someone who is always provided for," then you will always be provided for. And the beautiful thing is that you can change your story at any moment, because your story is not a fact but a choice. And when you choose a new story, you choose a new reality. Florence explained this principle using the metaphor of a seed, and she said a seed does not try to become a tree because the tree is already contained in the seed, and the seed only needs the right conditions of soil and water and light, and then it naturally becomes what it already is. And in the same way, you do not try to become wealthy because wealth is already contained in your divine identity. And you only need the right conditions, which are belief and declaration and receptivity, and then you naturally become what you already are. The mistake most people make is they look at their current circumstances and they identify with those circumstances and they say, I am broke, or I am in debt, or I am struggling. And each time they say this, they reinforce the identity that created those circumstances, and they trap themselves in a loop. But Florence said, you must identify with your divine potential, not your current circumstances. And you must say, I am supplied, and I am prosperous, and I am abundant, even when your bank account says otherwise, because your words create your identity, and your identity creates your reality. Now, while you rest, your identity is shifting, and you may not feel it happening, but it is happening at a level below consciousness, and your subconscious is releasing the old identity of lack and scarcity, and it is embracing the new identity of abundance and supply. And when you wake from this rest, you will be different, and you will not be able to explain how, but you will feel it, and you will notice that you think differently about money, and you speak differently about money, and you act differently around money. And these changes will be subtle at first, but they will compound, and within days or weeks, you will see external changes that match your internal shift, and you will receive money from unexpected sources, just like Stephen did. And you will know that it came not because you worked harder, but because you became someone different. Every person who begins to practice the principles of Florence Scovel Shinn encounters resistance. And the resistance does not come from the outside world, but from the inside world, and specifically from the part of your mind that Florence called the ego. And the ego is not evil, but it is afraid, and its job is to keep you safe. And in the ego's understanding, safe means familiar, and familiar means whatever you have always known. And if you have always known financial struggle, then struggle is familiar, and the ego will fight to keep you in struggle, because struggle is safe to the ego, even though it is painful to you. The nature of resistance is that it comes disguised as logic and reason and common sense. And when you begin to declare, I am divinely supplied, your ego will say, that is not true. Look at your bank account, and when you begin to act as if you are wealthy, your ego will say you are being irresponsible and you cannot afford this. And when you begin to expect money from unexpected sources, your ego will say you are being foolish and delusional. And the ego's voice is very convincing, because it sounds like your own voice, and it sounds like it is trying to protect you. Florence taught that resistance is not your enemy, but your teacher. And the way to work with resistance is not to fight it, but to witness it. And when you notice resistant thoughts arising, you simply observe them without believing them. And you say to yourself, that is my ego speaking, and my ego is afraid of change. And I thank my ego for trying to protect me, but I am safe and I am choosing a new path. And this gentle acknowledgement diffuses the power of resistance, because resistance gains power when you fight it, but loses power when you accept it. Her name was Carolyn, and she was 62 years old, and she lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she had been a nurse for 41 years, and she had retired the previous year, and she was living on her pension and Social Security, and her total income was $2,300 per month, and her expenses were $2,100 per month, which left her with $200 of discretionary income. And she was managing, but there was no cushion and no room for emergencies, and she lived with constant low-level anxiety about money. In April, Carolyn's friend gave her a book, and it was The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. And Carolyn read it in 2 days, and she was fascinated and skeptical in equal measure, and she decided to try the techniques Florence described, and specifically she decided to start affirming, I am divinely supplied, and I have more than enough. And she said these words every morning when she woke up and every night before bed, and she wrote them in a journal, and she felt hopeful and energized. On the first day of her practice, Carolyn woke up at 7:15 and said her affirmations with enthusiasm, and she went about her day feeling positive. But by evening, a voice in her head started saying, this is stupid, and you are lying to yourself because you do not have more than enough. You barely have enough. And Carolyn tried to ignore the voice, but it got louder, and by bedtime, she felt discouraged, and she thought, maybe this does not work for people like me, and maybe it only works for people who already have money, but she had committed to trying for at least a week, so she said her affirmations anyway, even though she did not believe them. On the second day, Carolyn woke at 3:14 in the morning without knowing why, and she lay in the dark, feeling anxious, and the voice in her head said, "You should check your bank balance and make sure there is enough for the mortgage." And Carolyn knew this was her ego trying to pull her back into old patterns because she had already checked her balance the day before, and there was enough, but the anxiety was so strong that she got up and checked again. And of course, the balance was fine, and she felt foolish, and she went back to bed. And as she lay there, she remembered Florence saying that resistance comes as fear and anxiety. And she realized that this was her first test. On the third day, Carolyn felt a different kind of resistance, and it came as guilt. And the voice in her head said, "Who do you think you are to claim abundance when there are people starving in the world? And it is selfish to want more money when you already have enough to survive." And Carolyn was raised Catholic, and guilt was a familiar feeling. And this resistance was harder to see through because it sounded righteous and moral. But she remembered Florence saying that claiming your divine supply does not take from anyone else, because there is infinite supply, and by claiming yours you actually make it easier for others to claim theirs. And so Carolyn pushed through the guilt and said her affirmations anyway. On the fourth day, Carolyn woke up feeling irritated and annoyed, and the voice in her head said, "This is taking too long, and if it was going to work, it would have worked by now, and you should just accept that you are going to live on a tight budget for the rest of your life, and stop wasting your time with this magical thinking." And this resistance was the hardest one yet, because it sounded so reasonable, and Carolyn almost gave up. But she remembered Florence saying that manifestation happens in divine timing, not human timing, and sometimes the invisible shifts happen long before the visible changes appear. On the fifth day, Carolyn felt a wave of fear, and the voice said, "What if you manifest money, and then you lose it, and you are back where you started, and isn't it safer to just not hope for anything?" And Carolyn recognized this as her ego's final defense, which is if you never hope, you can never be disappointed. And she realized that her ego was more afraid of disappointment than poverty, because disappointment means feeling pain, and the ego's main job is to avoid pain. And Carolyn said out loud to the empty room, "I am willing to feel disappointment if it means I get to feel hope." On the sixth night, Carolyn went to bed feeling exhausted from the internal battle, and she fell asleep without saying her affirmations. And at 2:57 in the morning, she woke up suddenly, and the room was completely dark and silent. And in that darkness, she heard a voice. And it was not her voice, and it was not the ego's voice, but a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. And the voice said, "You do not need to fight, just surrender." And Carolyn felt all the tension in her body. Release and tears streamed down her face, and she said out loud into the dark, "I surrender." On the seventh morning, Carolyn woke up, and she did not feel the resistance anymore, and she said her affirmations, but they felt different, because she was not trying to convince herself, and she was not fighting against doubt, but she was simply allowing the words to be true. And she went through her day with a feeling of peace and openness, and at 4:37 in the afternoon, she received a phone call from her former hospital, and they said they were desperately short-staffed, and would she be willing to work 3 shifts per month as a consultant, and they would pay her $65 per hour, which was almost twice what she had made as a staff nurse. Carolyn said yes, and in her first month working 3 12-hour shifts, she made $2,340, which was exactly equal to her entire monthly pension and Social Security combined. And she realized that by surrendering the resistance, she had opened a channel for supply to flow. And the supply had come not because she forced it, but because she allowed it. And she understood what Florence meant when she said, "The universe has infinite ways to bring you what you need, and your job is not to figure out how, but simply to receive." What Carolyn discovered is what everyone discovers when they practice these principles, which is that resistance is inevitable, and resistance comes in many forms. And sometimes it sounds like doubt, and sometimes it sounds like fear, and sometimes it sounds like guilt, and sometimes it sounds like logic. But regardless of how it sounds the way through, it is always the same, which is to witness it and thank it and choose differently. And resistance cannot survive surrender, because surrender is not giving up, but giving in to something greater than your small self. Florence taught that when you encounter resistance, You should say this simple phrase, I do not need to understand, but I simply receive. And this phrase disarms the ego, because the ego wants to understand and control and figure out how things will work. But when you say, I simply receive, you are declaring that you trust the universe to work out the details. And this trust is the opposite of resistance. And where there is trust, there is flow. And where there is flow, there is manifestation. As you rest now, you may be feeling your own resistance, and you may be hearing voices in your head saying, this will not work for me, or I have tried things like this before, and they did not work, or I am different from other people. And these are the voices of your ego trying to keep you safe in your familiar struggle. But I want you to know that you do not need to fight these voices, and you do not need to silence them, but you only need to witness them and say thank you for trying to protect me, but I am choosing to receive, and then let them go. And as you sleep tonight, your resistance will dissolve, because in sleep, the ego is quiet. And in that quiet, the truth can enter, which is that you are already supplied, and you have always been supplied, and you will always be supplied, because supply is not something you earn, but something you are. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that when you speak a decree or make an affirmation, the universe immediately begins to respond. And the first response is not usually money showing up in your bank account, but signs showing up in your environment. And signs are the language of the invisible, and they are confirmation that your decree has been heard and that forces are in motion. And most people miss the signs because they are looking for the final result, and they dismiss the small synchronicities as coincidences. But Florence said, there is no such thing as coincidence, and every synchronicity is significant. A sign can be anything, and it can be a number you keep seeing, or a phrase you keep hearing, or a person who contacts you unexpectedly, or a coin you find on the ground, or a dream that feels significant, or a song that plays at the perfect moment. And the sign itself does not matter. What matters is that you recognize it as a sign, and that you receive it with gratitude, because gratitude amplifies the signal and tells the universe, yes, I am paying attention. Send more, and when you acknowledge signs, you activate a feedback loop, and more signs come, and they come faster and stronger until the final manifestation arrives. The reason signs come before manifestation is because manifestation moves from the invisible realm to the visible realm through stages, and it does not leap from nothing to everything, but moves through progressive densities. And the first stage is thought, and the second stage is sign, and the third stage is opportunity, and the fourth stage is manifestation. And each stage is necessary, and each stage is evidence that the process is working. And if you rush or try to skip stages, you interrupt the flow. But if you honor each stage and receive it with gratitude, the flow accelerates. His name was Paul, and he was 55 years old, and he lived in Austin, Texas, and he was a freelance graphic designer, and his income was unpredictable, and some months he made $6,000, and some months he made $800, and he had been doing this work for 22 years, and he was tired of the inconsistency, and he wanted stable income, and he had applied for full-time jobs, but companies said he was overqualified, or they wanted someone younger, and Paul felt stuck and discouraged. In June, Paul listened to a recording of Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings, and he heard her say that you must decree your good, and then watch for the signs, and Paul decided to try this. And on the morning of June 9th, at 6:32, he sat at his kitchen table and he said out loud, I am divinely employed and my perfect job comes to me now, and I receive signs today that this is true, and it is done. And he said it 3 times, and then he went about his day, and he decided to watch for signs. At 9:17 that same morning, Paul went to the coffee shop where he usually worked, and as he stood in line to order, he looked down and saw a dime on the floor, and normally he would have ignored it or stepped over it. But he remembered Florence saying that coins are signs of coming money, so he picked up the dime, and he said quietly, thank you for this sign. And he felt a little foolish but also a little excited, and he noticed that finding the dime made him feel lighter. At 11:43, Paul was working on his laptop when he received an email, and the subject line was inquiry about design work, and when he opened it, the email was from a company he had never heard of, and they said they had found his portfolio online and wanted to know if he was available for a project, and Paul's heart jumped, And he thought, this is another sign, and he replied immediately saying yes, he was available. And he asked for details, and he felt a buzz of energy in his chest. At 2:28 in the afternoon, Paul took a break and went for a walk. And as he walked down 6th Street, he passed a homeless man sitting against a wall, and the man said to Paul, "Hey buddy, can you spare some change?" And normally Paul would have said sorry and kept walking, but today he stopped, and he pulled out the dime he had found that morning, and he gave it to the man, and the man looked at the dime and laughed and said, "Well, it is better than nothing." And Paul laughed too. And as he walked away, he thought that was the third sign, because Florence said that giving creates receiving, and by giving the dime away, he was declaring that more was coming. At 6:51 in the evening, Paul received an email back from the company that had contacted him, and they said the project was a complete rebrand, and it would take 3 months, and they were offering $22,000. And did he want the job? And Paul read the email 3 times to make sure it was real, and then he stood up from his desk, and he said out loud, "Thank you." And he realized that all day long, signs had been appearing, and each sign had been building momentum, and now the signs had culminated in an actual opportunity. Over the next 3 days, Paul continued to watch for signs, and he continued to find them. And on June 10th, he saw a billboard that said, "Your breakthrough is coming." And he took a photo of it because it felt like a message directly to him. And on June 11th, he had a dream where he was swimming in clear water, and he knew from reading about Florence that water in dreams represents flow and abundance. And on June 12th, he received another email from a different potential client asking if he was available for work. On June 13th, Paul woke at 3:42 in the morning, and he sat on the edge of his bed, and he said his decree again, "I am divinely employed, and my perfect job comes to me now, and I receive, and it is done." And as he said these words, he felt a strong sense of knowing that everything was already accomplished. And he went back to sleep, and when he woke at 7:15, there was an email waiting from the company with the $22,000 project. And they said they had checked. His references and everything was approved, and could he start on July 1st? Paul started the project on July 1st, and within 2 weeks the company offered him a full-time position with benefits and a salary of $87,000 per year. And when he received the offer, Paul sat in his apartment and he cried because for 22 years he had been struggling as a freelancer, and now suddenly everything had shifted, and he realized that the shift had started with the signs, and the signs had started with his decree, and the decree had worked because he had paid attention and received each sign with gratitude. What Paul learned and what Florence taught is that signs are the universe's way of communicating with you, and the more you pay attention to signs, the more signs appear. And there are 3 levels of signs, and the first level is microsigns, which are internal and subtle, like intuitions and hunches and inner knowing. And the second level is medium signs, which are external but small, like coins and numbers and synchronicities. And the third level is macro signs, which are undeniable and transformational, like opportunities and meetings and sudden shifts, and all 3 levels are always happening for you. But most people only notice the macro level, and they miss the micro and medium levels, which are the foundation. Florence said that when you are waiting for manifestation, you should create a sign list and write down every sign you notice, no matter how small. And the reason for this is that writing signs down makes them real and visible, and it trains your mind to pay attention. And also when you look back at your list, you will see patterns, and you will see how the signs built momentum over time, and you will recognize that what seemed random was actually orchestrated, and this recognition builds faith, and faith accelerates manifestation. Another reason signs are important is that they keep you encouraged during the waiting period, because there is always a waiting period between decree and manifestation. And during this time, your logical mind will try to convince you that nothing is happening. But if you are watching for signs, you will see that much is happening in the invisible realm. And the signs are evidence of invisible activity. And when you see evidence, you stay in faith. And when you stay in faith, you stay open. And when you stay open, you receive. While you rest, now signs are already being prepared for you. And in the next 24 to 72 hours, you will begin to notice them, and they may come as numbers or words or songs or people or dreams or feelings, and your job is not to analyze them, but simply to notice them and say, thank you. Because gratitude is the magnet that draws more signs, and more signs draw the final manifestation, and everything is already in motion, and you do not need to make it happen. You only need to allow it to happen, and allowing is a skill you practice by receiving signs with an open heart. One of the most difficult aspects of manifestation for most people is the waiting period. And the waiting period is the time between when you speak your decree and when you see the physical result. And this waiting time can be hours or days or weeks or months. And during this time, your logical mind will tell you that it is not working, and you will be tempted to give up and try something else. And Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the waiting period is not empty time, but gestation time. And just as a seed planted in soil requires time to germinate and grow before it breaks through the surface, your decree requires time to move from the invisible realm into the visible realm. Florence said that in the mind of God, there is no time, and everything happens simultaneously. But in the human realm, there is time, because physical matter is dense, and it takes longer for consciousness to rearrange matter. And this is not because the universe is slow, but because there are complex factors involved, and people and circumstances that must be aligned, and opportunities that must be created. And the universe is working out every detail perfectly, so that when the manifestation arrives, it is exactly right and perfectly timed. The mistake most people make is that they plant the seed and then they dig it up every day to see if it is growing, and every time you check your bank account obsessively or worry about when the money is coming, you are digging up the seed and interrupting the gestation process. And Florence taught that the way to work with divine timing is to plant the seed, which means speak your decree and then walk away and trust that the seed is doing what seeds do, which is growing in the dark where you cannot see it, and your job is to water it with gratitude and faith, but not to dig it up with doubt and impatience. Her name was Sandra, and she was 58 years old, and she lived in Tampa, Florida, and she was a single mother of 2 adult children, and she worked as an office manager for a dental practice, and her salary was $41,000 per year, and she had been at this job for 19 years, and her rent had just been increased from $1,200 per month to $1,650 per month, and her landlord said if she could not pay the new rent, she would have to move out, and she had 60 days to decide. Sandra did not want to move because she loved her apartment, and it was close to her work and her church and her grandchildren, and she had lived there for 11 years, and moving would cost money. She did not have for deposits and truck rental, and she felt angry and helpless and trapped. And one night she was crying in her bedroom, and she prayed and she said, God, if you are real, I need help, and I need it now. And after she prayed, she felt a small feeling of peace, and she wiped her tears and got into bed. At 3:03 in the morning, Sandra woke up, and the feeling of peace was still there. And she sat up, and she felt compelled to speak, and she said out loud, my rent is paid, and I have more than enough, and I am divinely provided for, and it is done. And she had no idea where those words came from, but they felt true. And she said them again, and she felt a warmth in her chest, and then she went back to sleep. The next morning, Sandra woke at 6:45, and the first thing she thought was, what if I just let go of trying to control this and let God work it out? And this thought felt radical, because Sandra had been a controller her whole life, and she had survived by planning and managing and solving problems herself. But she felt tired of controlling, and she decided to try something different, and she decided to trust. For the next 71 hours, Sandra did not check her bank account, and she did not look at apartment listings, and she did not call her landlord to negotiate, and she did not tell her children about the rent increase because she did not want to worry them, and instead, she went about her life as normally as possible, and she said her decree every morning and every night, and she tried to feel as if the problem was already solved, even though nothing had changed yet. On the second day after her decree, Sandra felt the urge to check her account, but she resisted, and instead she went for a walk, and while she was walking, she saw a butterfly land on a flower, and she stopped and watched it, and she thought about how the butterfly was once a caterpillar, and how the caterpillar had to completely dissolve inside the cocoon before it could become a butterfly. And she thought, maybe I am in my cocoon right now, and I just cannot see what is happening. On the third day, Sandra woke up feeling anxious, and the voice in her head said, "You are running out of time and you need to do something." But she remembered Florence's teaching about not digging up the seed, and she said to herself, "I trust divine timing." And she went to work, and at lunch, she sat in her car, and she said her decree 3 times, and she felt calmer. On the morning of the 4th day, which was exactly 71 hours and 40 minutes after her first decree, Sandra was at work, and at 10:17 the office phone rang, and she answered it, and the voice on the other end said, "Is this Sandra?" And she said yes, and the voice said, "This is Patricia from the billing department at Bright Dental. I am calling because we just processed a payroll correction, and it turns out you have been underpaid for the last 14 months due to a calculation error in your overtime, and we owe you back pay, and the amount is $6,300, and the check is being mailed today." Sandra sat at her desk, staring at the phone after Patricia hung up, and she could not move because $6,300 was not only enough to cover the rent increase for the next several months, but it was also enough to pay off her credit card and have emergency savings, and she had not known she was being underpaid, and she had never complained or asked for a review, and the money was coming completely out of the blue. And she realized that this was divine timing, and that if the money had come even 1 day earlier, she would not have had the chance to practice trust. That evening, Sandra calculated that if she had received the back pay even 3 weeks earlier, she would have spent it on other things and would not have had it available when the rent increase notice came, and she realized that the universe had held the money until the exact moment she needed it. And this was not because the universe is slow, but because the universe is precise and everything happens at the right time for the right reason. What Sandra learned and what Florence taught is that divine timing is always perfect, even when it feels late to human perception. And sometimes things take longer because there are pieces that need to fall into place, and people who need to be moved, and circumstances that need to align. And if the manifestation came before everything was ready, it would not be sustainable. But when it comes at the divinely appointed time, it comes with everything needed for it to last. Florence told a story about a woman who prayed for a house, and she wanted the house immediately, but months passed, and no house appeared, and the woman grew frustrated and angry. And finally she gave up and stopped praying. And then 2 years later, a house became available in the exact neighborhood she wanted, and at a price she could afford. And it was perfect in every way. And when she moved in, she discovered that the previous owners had planted a garden that was now mature and producing fruit, and she realized that if she had gotten a house 2 years earlier, she would not have had this gift, and she understood that divine timing includes gifts you did not even know to ask for. The way to live during the waiting period is to continue your normal life and to take inspired action when you feel moved to act, but not to take desperate action from fear. And Florence said that inspired action feels light and easy and exciting, while desperate action feels heavy and forced and anxious. And if you are trying to make something happen from fear, you are working against the flow. But if you are allowing something to happen from faith, you are working with the flow. Another teaching Florence gave about time is that you can shorten the waiting period by increasing your faith and gratitude, because faith and gratitude are high vibration emotions, and they accelerate manifestation. And every time you say, "Thank you," as if your good is already here, you are collapsing time and bringing the future into the present. And this is why she taught her students to give thanks for their demonstrations before they saw them, because thanksgiving is the highest form of faith. As you rest now, divine timing is operating in your life, and things are being arranged in the invisible realm that you cannot see, and people are being moved, and opportunities are being created, and money is being released from unexpected sources. And all of this is happening simultaneously, even though you see nothing yet. And your job is to rest and trust and know that everything is unfolding perfectly. And when you wake, the process will still be continuing. And within days or weeks, you will see the evidence, and you will remember this moment, and you will understand that the waiting period was not empty, but full of invisible activity working on your behalf. Florence Scovel Shinn understood something, that most spiritual teachers of her time did not understand. And it is this: you are not manifesting alone in isolation, but you are manifesting within a collective field. And the collective field is made up of all the thoughts and beliefs and decrees of every person who is conscious of these principles. And when you make a decree, you are not just activating your individual consciousness, but you are tapping into the collective consciousness of everyone who has ever made a similar decree, and this collective field amplifies your individual power exponentially. This is why Florence taught the principle of witnesses. And in ancient times, a legal decree was not valid unless there were witnesses present, because witnesses made the decree real in the collective consciousness. And in the same way, when you make a spiritual decree, the decree becomes more powerful when it is witnessed by others, and the witnesses do not need to be physically present, but they exist in the invisible realm, and every person who has ever successfully manifested abundance is a witness. For your manifestation and their success creates a pathway for your success. When thousands of people around the world speak the same decree or listen to the same teaching at 3 in the morning, they create what scientists call a morphic field, which is an invisible field of information and intention. And this field exists outside of time and space, and once a field is created, it becomes easier for everyone to access it. And this is why certain breakthroughs in human consciousness happen simultaneously in different parts of the world, because the field has been established. And anyone who tunes into that frequency can access it. His name was Ronald, and he was 67 years old, and he lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and he was a widower, and his wife had died 3 years earlier from Alzheimer's, and he had spent the last 5 years of her life caring for her, and he had used up all their savings paying for her care. And now he was alone. And he had his Social Security, which was $1,420 per month, and he had a small pension of $600 per month, and his rent was $1,100 per month, which left him $920 for everything else. Ronald was not depressed, but he was lonely, and he felt invisible because no one called him anymore, and his children lived in other states and only visited twice a year, and he spent most of his days sitting in his apartment watching television and waiting for time to pass, and he did not feel like he had anything to live for. And he had started to think maybe it would be better if he just died, because then at least he would be with his wife again. One night in August, Ronald could not sleep, and he was lying in bed at 2:30 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, and he felt a sudden urge to get up and turn on his computer, which he rarely used. And when he opened the browser, he did not know what to search for, but his hands typed Florence Scovel Shinn without him consciously deciding to. And he clicked on a video, and he put on his headphones, and he started listening, and the first thing he heard was her voice saying, "You are never alone. And you are surrounded by invisible witnesses who are supporting your highest good." When Ronald heard those words, he started crying, and he could not stop because he had felt so alone for so long, and the idea that there were invisible witnesses supporting him felt like a lifeline. And he listened to the entire teaching, and when it was over, it was 3:15 in the morning, and he felt something he had not felt in years, which was hope. And he took off his headphones, and he sat in the dark silence of his room, and he said out loud, "If there are really witnesses here, then I am asking you to help me because I do not know how to help myself." The next morning, Ronald woke at 7:43, and he decided to try something, and he decided that he would speak a decree every day at 3 in the morning, and if he could not wake up naturally, he would set an alarm, and his decree would be, "I am supported by the invisible field, and I am never alone, and I receive, and it is done." And he did not really believe it would work, but he had nothing to lose, so he decided to try for 7 days. For 7 consecutive days, Ronald woke at 3 a.m. and spoke his decree, and each time he spoke it, he felt a little less alone. And on the 4th morning, as he spoke the words, he suddenly felt a presence in the room, and it was not a physical presence, but he felt surrounded by warmth, and he felt hands on his shoulders, even though no one was there, and he knew in that moment that the witnesses were real and that he was not alone, and he wept with relief. On the 8th day, Ronald did not set his alarm, but he woke at 3:15 anyway, and as he sat on the edge of his bed preparing to speak his decree, his phone rang, which was strange because no one ever called him, especially not at 3 in the morning, and he answered it, and it was his daughter, and she said, "Dad, I am so sorry to call at this hour, but I have been up all night thinking about you, and I had a dream that you needed help, and I just want you to know that I love you, and I am going to start calling you every week, and also I want to send you some money, and I know you will say no, but I am sending it anyway." 3 days later, a check arrived from his daughter for $2,000, and there was a note that said, "Dad, I have been feeling guilty for not being there for you, and this money is not charity, but it is love, and please use it for something that brings you joy." And Ronald stood in his small kitchen, holding the check, and he realized that his daughter was a witness, and she had been moved by the invisible field to reach out to him and send him support. And he understood that when he had called on the witnesses, they had responded through his daughter. Over the next 2 weeks, Ronald continued to wake at 3 a.m. and speak his decree, and he began to notice that other people were showing up in his life, and his neighbor knocked on his door and invited him to a community center where seniors gathered to play cards, and he went and he made 3 new friends, and one of them was a retired accountant who helped Ronald discover that he was eligible for a veteran's benefit he did not know about because Ronald had served in the Navy for 4 years in his 20s, and the benefit was $340 per month, and it was retroactive for 1 year, which meant he received a check for $4,080. Ronald's life transformed over the next 3 months, and not because he suddenly had a lot of money, but because he was no longer alone, and he realized that the invisible witnesses were always there. But he had not known how to access them until he learned to call on them at 3 in the morning, and the 3 a.m. hour was the key, because at that hour, the collective field of all the people who had ever prayed or decreed was most accessible, and by tapping into that field, he had activated support. That was always available but dormant. What Ronald learned and what Florence taught is that you are never manifesting in isolation, but you are always supported by the collective consciousness of everyone who has walked this path before you. And when you make a decree, you are joining your voice with millions of voices across time and space. And this collective voice is so powerful that it moves mountains and creates miracles, and all you need to do is add your voice to the field, and the field will amplify your voice 1,000-fold. Florence said that when you write your decree in a public place like a comment section, you are creating a visible witness, and every person who reads your decree becomes a witness for your manifestation. And every person who writes the same decree strengthens the field for everyone else. And this is why community is so powerful, because we do not manifest separately, but we manifest together. And your success contributes to my success, and my success contributes to yours. And we are all connected in the invisible web of consciousness. This is also why listening to these teachings while you sleep is so effective. Because while you sleep, you are more open to the collective field, and your individual consciousness merges with the collective consciousness, and you download information and support that you could not access while awake. And when you wake, you bring that support back with you into your waking life, and it manifests as ideas and opportunities and unexpected help. As you rest now, you are being held by the collective field, and thousands of people around the world are listening to these same words and speaking the same decrees, and you are all connected in an invisible network of support, and every person who successfully manifests abundance makes it easier for the next person. And your manifestation will make it easier for someone else. And this is how consciousness evolves, and this is how the world changes, one person at a time, awakening to their divine supply and claiming it and receiving it, and then showing others how to do the same. We have traveled together through many teachings tonight, and you have heard about the sacred 3 a.m. hour, and how it is the time when the veil is thinnest and prayers pass through without resistance. And you have heard about Sharon, who woke at 3:17 in the morning and spoke a decree and received $3,400 within 48 hours. And you have heard about the principle that words are not descriptions, but decrees, and that when you speak, you are creating reality, not reporting it. And you learned this through Deborah, who changed her words, and watched her failing business transform within 1 week. You heard about Kenneth, who was broken and defeated, and who Florence taught to wake at 3 in the morning and speak a decree, and how his life completely reversed within 72 hours. And you learned the principle of identity and how you do not attract what you want, but what you are. And you saw this through Stephen the security guard, who had been poor for 64 years until he changed his identity, and 9 days later received an inheritance of $27,800 that he did not know existed. You heard about Carolyn and the 7 resistances she faced, and how she moved through doubt and guilt and fear and impatience until finally she surrendered. And in that surrender, she opened a channel and received work as a consultant making $65 per hour. And you learned that resistance is not your enemy, but your teacher. And the way through it is to witness it and thank it and choose differently. And you heard about Paul and the signs that came all day long and how he paid attention and received each sign with gratitude and watched them build momentum until they culminated in a $22,000 contract and a full-time job. You heard about Sandra and divine timing and how she had to wait 71 hours and 40 minutes for her manifestation. But when it came, it was perfectly timed and exactly right. And you learned that the waiting period is not empty, but full of invisible activity. And your job is not to dig up the seed, but to water it with faith and trust. And you heard about Ronald and the power of the collective field, and how when he called on the invisible witnesses, they responded through his daughter and his neighbor and a veteran's benefit, and he discovered that he was never alone. All of these stories are true, and all of these principles are real, and they work not because they are magic, but because they are spiritual law, and spiritual law is as reliable as physical law. And when you speak a decree at 3 in the morning, you are activating forces in the invisible realm that must respond, and the response may come quickly, or it may come slowly, but it will come because the universe is obligated to match your decree. And now, I am going to tell you one more story, and this story is the most powerful of all because it shows what happens when someone applies all of these principles together. Her name was Judith, and she was 53 years old, and she lived in Seattle, Washington, and she had been a graphic artist for 29 years, and she had always been healthy and active, and she had never had any serious health problems. And then in March of 2024, she found a lump in her breast, and she went to the doctor, and they did tests. And on April 2nd, she received a call, and the doctor said, "Judith, I am sorry, but it is cancer, and it is stage 3, and you need to start treatment immediately." Judith sat in her living room after the call, and she could not move, and she could not think, because her mind had gone completely blank, and she did not have health insurance because she was self-employed and had thought she was healthy and did not need it. And the doctor had given her an estimate, and the cost of treatment would be between $700,000 and $800,000, and Judith had $12,000 in savings, and she had no family who could help and no way to get that kind of money, and she knew that without treatment, she would die. And she sat there on her couch and she stared at the wall, and she thought, this is how my story ends. That night, Judith could not sleep, and she lay in bed crying, and at some point around midnight, she stopped crying because she had no tears left, and she felt empty and hollow, and she thought, I should pray, but I do not know how to pray for something impossible. And then she remembered something her grandmother had told her when she was a child, and her grandmother had said, when you do not know how to pray, just say thank you, because thank you is the most powerful prayer. And so Judith closed her eyes, and she whispered thank you, even though she did not know what she was thanking for, and as she said it, she felt a tiny bit of peace. Judith fell asleep, and at 3:33 in the morning, she woke suddenly, and the room was dark and quiet, and she felt a presence in the room, and she was not afraid, but she felt like someone was there with her. And then she heard words in her mind, and the words were not her own thoughts, but they were clear and strong, and they said, you are already healed, and your provision is already complete, and all you must do is receive. And Judith sat up in bed, and she turned on the light, and she said out loud, who said that? And there was no answer, but the words remained in her mind, you are already healed, and your provision is already complete. Judith got out of bed, and she went to her computer and she searched for the words that had come to her mind. And she found Florence Scovel Shinn, and she started reading, and she read for 2 hours. And when the sun came up at 5:54, she understood what she needed to do, and she needed to stop seeing herself as a sick person with no money and start seeing herself as a healed person who was fully provided for. And she needed to decree this truth, even though her circumstances said otherwise. On April 3rd at 3:33 in the morning, Judith set her alarm, and when it rang, she sat up in bed, and she placed both hands over her heart, and she felt her heartbeat, and she said out loud, "I am healed, and I am whole, and my treatment is fully funded, and I receive, and it is done." And as she said these words, she felt something shift in her chest, and she felt a warmth spread through her body, and she knew that something had changed in the invisible realm, even though nothing had changed in the visible realm. For the next 3 days, Judith woke at 3:33 and spoke her decree, and during the day, she watched for signs, and on April 4th, she found a quarter on the sidewalk, and she picked it up and said thank you, and on April 5th, she received an email from a former client asking if she was available for work, and she said yes, even though she did not know how she would work during treatment. And on April 6th, she had a dream where she was standing in an operating room, and a voice said, "You will not need this because you are already whole." On April 7th, Judith received a call from a woman named Patricia who said she was from the Providence Medical Foundation, and she was calling because Judith's name had been submitted by her doctor for an emergency medical grant. And Judith said, "I did not know such a thing existed." And Patricia said, "Yes, we provide grants for patients who need life-saving treatment but cannot afford it. And your case has been reviewed by our board. And we want to let you know that we are approving full funding for your treatment, including surgery and chemotherapy and radiation and all follow-up care. And there will be no cost to you." Judith held the phone, and she could not speak because she thought she was dreaming. And Patricia said, "Are you there?" And Judith said, "Yes, I am here. I just cannot believe this is real." And Patricia said, "It is real, and we will send you all the paperwork, but I wanted to call you personally to let you know, because I know you must be worried." And Judith said, "How much is the grant?" And Patricia said, "The total approved amount is $837,000, which covers everything." And Judith said, "Why that number?" And Patricia laughed and said, "I do not know. That is just what the total came to after our actuaries calculated everything." Judith hung up the phone, and she walked to her bedroom, and she lay down on her bed, and she put her hands over her heart, and she felt her heart beating, and she started to cry. But this time she was not crying from fear, but from gratitude. And she said out loud, over and over again, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And she cried for 20 minutes, and when she stopped crying, she felt completely peaceful. And she realized that the provision had always been there. She just had not known how to access it, until she learned to decree it at 3:33 in the morning. Judith's treatment began on April 23rd, and it was difficult, and there were days when she felt sick and weak and wanted to give up. But every morning at 3:33, she woke and spoke her decree, and every time she spoke it, she felt strength returning, and on her worst days, she would say, "I am already healed, and I am already whole," and she would feel peace, and she would sleep, and her body would rest and repair and heal. On December 18th, 8 months after her diagnosis, Judith went for her follow-up scan, and on December 23rd, the doctor called and said, "Judith, I have incredible news." And she said, "What?" And the doctor said, "The scan is completely clear, and there is no evidence of cancer, and we are calling this a complete remission." And Judith said, "How is that possible?" And the doctor said, "I do not know, because statistically your cancer was aggressive and should not have responded this well. But sometimes we see miracles, and I think you are one of them." Judith hung up the phone, and she went to her bedroom, and she sat on the edge of her bed, and she placed her hands over her heart, and she felt her strong, steady heartbeat, and she said out loud, "It was never the cancer that needed to be healed, but my belief that I was not already whole." And she understood that the $837,000 grant had not saved her life, but her decree had saved her life, because the decree had shifted her identity from victim to victor. And that identity shift had activated her body's natural healing and had also attracted the exact financial provision she needed at the exact moment she needed it. Now you have heard all of these stories, and you have received all of these teachings, and the moment has come for you to receive the seal, and the seal is the final decree that locks everything into place and makes it permanent, and you do not need to do anything because I am going to speak the seal over you. And as I speak it, you will feel it entering your body and your consciousness. And when you wake, you will be different, because the seal cannot be broken, and once it is spoken, it is done. Even if you are sleeping right now, there is a part of you that never sleeps, and that part is listening, and that part is awake, and that part is your eternal self, and your eternal self knows everything I have shared tonight, and has always known it, and this teaching is not new information, but remembering. And you are remembering right now who you really are and what you really are, and why you are here. And the reason you are here is to receive. And the reason you can receive is because you are made of the same substance as the source. And the source is infinite supply. And therefore, you are infinite supply. And there is no separation between you and your good. I want you to breathe with me now. And even if you are sleeping, your body will breathe with me, because your body knows how to breathe and it responds to the rhythm of my voice. And so breathe in slowly and deeply, and breathe in through your nose, and feel the cool air entering your nostrils and filling your lungs, and feel your chest expanding and your belly rising, and hold that breath for just a moment at the top, and then breathe out slowly through your mouth and feel the warm air leaving your body, and feel your chest softening and your belly falling. And do this 2 more times, and breathe in slowly, deeply, fully, and hold and breathe out slowly, completely emptying. And 1 more time, breathe in and receive, and breathe out and release. And now, your body is ready to receive the seal. The seal comes in 3 waves, and each wave builds on the one before. And by the 3rd wave, the seal is complete and permanent and unbreakable, and you will feel each wave as it moves through you, and if you do not feel it, that is fine, because it is working, regardless of whether you feel it. And now the 1st wave comes, and I speak it slowly and gently, and you receive it deeply, and the 1st wave is this: it is finished, and the words "it is finished" mean that everything you have asked for is already complete in the invisible realm, and there is nothing left to do, and there is nothing left to become, and you are not waiting for your good to arrive, because your good has already arrived, and you are simply waiting for your eyes to see it and your hands to touch it. But in truth, it is already done, and this is not future tense but present tense, and it is finished now, and it is finished completely, and it is finished perfectly. It is done, and the words "it is done" mean that the process is complete, and the seed has been planted, and the seed is already growing, and the harvest is already determined, and you do not need to dig up the seed, and you do not need to help the seed, and you do not need to worry about the seed, because the seed knows what to do, and the soil knows what to do, and the sun and the rain know what to do, and all the forces of nature are conspiring to bring your seed to fruition, and it is done, and you can rest, because done means complete, and complete means finished, and finished means you are free. And it cannot be otherwise. And these words mean that what has been decreed cannot be undecreed, and what has been spoken cannot be unspoken. And the universe has heard your decree, and the universe has set forces in motion, and those forces are irreversible and unstoppable and inevitable. And even if you try to sabotage your manifestation with doubt or fear or negative words, you cannot stop what has already been set in motion, because it is too late, and the train has left the station, and the arrow has left the bow, and it is flying toward its target, and it cannot be otherwise. That was the 1st wave, and now the 2nd wave comes, and the 2nd wave is stronger and fuller and more powerful, and I speak it now with authority, and you receive it with certainty. And the 2nd wave is this: it is finished, and you feel these words vibrating in your chest, and the vibration says that all struggle is over, and all lack is over, and all fear about money is over, and there is nothing left to figure out, and there is nothing left to control, and you are released from the burden of making things happen, because things are already happening, and they are happening without your effort, and they are happening because of who you are not, because of what you do. And it is finished means rest now and Trust now and receive now. It is done, and you feel these words anchoring in your belly, and the anchor says that this is solid, and this is real, and this is not wishful thinking or positive affirmations, but this is spiritual law, and spiritual law is more real than physical law, because physical law changes, but spiritual law is eternal. And what is done in the spiritual realm must manifest in the physical realm, because the physical is born from the spiritual, and it is done means there is no possibility of failure, and there is no chance of it not working, and it is already accomplished, and it cannot be otherwise. And you feel these words sealing at the base of your spine, and the seal says that this is locked, and this is permanent, and this is irreversible, and you cannot undo it, even if you wanted to, and the universe cannot undo it, because the universe is bound by its own laws, and once a decree is spoken, the universe must respond, and it is responding now, and it will continue to respond until the full manifestation is complete and visible, and it cannot be, otherwise means you are safe, and you are protected, and your good is guaranteed. That was the second wave, and now the third wave comes, and the third wave is the final wave and the most powerful wave, and this wave carries the full authority of the divine, and I speak it now as a decree, not a request, and you receive it as law, not hope. And the third wave is this: it is finished. And as I speak these words, light pours down from above and enters through the crown of your head and fills your entire body with golden radiance. And this light is the light of completion, and everywhere it touches is healed and restored and made whole. And it is finished echoes through every cell of your body and every atom of your being, and your body hears, and your body knows, and your body relaxes because it is finished. It is done. And as I speak these words, a column of green light rises up from the earth and enters through the soles of your feet and moves up through your legs and your hips and your torso, and meets the golden light from above in your heart, and the two lights merge and create a brilliant emerald green that expands outward from your heart and fills your entire energy field. And this emerald light is the light of abundance and prosperity and divine supply, and it radiates from you in all directions and attracts to you everything you need, and it is done echoes through space and time and creates ripples in the invisible field that reach into the future and bring your manifestation back to you now. And it cannot be otherwise. And as I speak these words, a seal of violet light wraps around your entire body and energy field like a protective cocoon. And this seal ensures that no doubt or fear or negative thought can penetrate, and no outside influence can interfere, and you are protected and preserved in your state of reception and manifestation. And the seal is permanent and unbreakable, and it cannot be otherwise, echoes through all dimensions and all timelines, and ensures that in every possible reality you are provided for and supplied and abundant, and your manifestation is guaranteed across all versions of you and all possible futures. And it cannot be otherwise is the final word and the final law. The three waves are complete, and the seal is locked, and now comes the decree of identity. And this decree is who you are, and who you have always been, and who you will always be. And this decree overrides all previous programming and all limiting beliefs and all fear-based conditioning. And when I speak this decree, you become it, and you cannot unbecome it, because identity is permanent. And once you know who you are, you cannot unknow it. And I speak this decree 3 times, and each time it goes deeper and becomes more real and more solid and more unshakable. The first time I speak the decree of identity in a gentle voice, and you receive it as truth. And the decree is this: I am a natural receiver. And these words mean that receiving is your nature. And you do not need to learn how to receive, because you already know, and you have always known. And receiving is as natural to you as breathing. And you receive money the way flowers receive rain. And you receive abundance the way the ocean receives rivers. And you do not question it, and you do not doubt it, and you do not block it, and you simply receive, because that is what you are. And I am a natural receiver. I have always received. And these words mean that your entire life has been a demonstration of receiving, even when you thought you were not receiving. And every breath you have taken is proof that you receive because you received air, and every meal you have eaten is proof that you receive because you received food, and every sunrise you have seen is proof that you receive because you received light, and you have never stopped receiving, and you will never stop receiving, because receiving is woven into the fabric of your being, and I have always received, and it cannot be otherwise. And these words mean that receiving is not optional, but inevitable, and you cannot stop yourself from receiving any more than you can stop the tide from coming in, and your receiving is guaranteed by the laws of the universe, and the universe gives, and you receive. And this is the eternal dance, and you are always on the receiving end, because that is your position in the cosmic order, and it cannot be otherwise. The second time I speak the decree of identity in a normal voice, and you receive it as law, and the decree is this: I am a natural receiver. And now these words sink deeper, and they reach the layer of your subconscious where all your beliefs are stored, and they begin to rewrite the old programs. And the old program said, you have to work hard for money, and money is scarce, and you do not deserve abundance. But these programs are being deleted now and replaced with the truth, which is I am a natural receiver, and money comes to me effortlessly, and I do not have to earn it, but only receive it. I have always received. And now these words activate ancient memory, and you remember lifetimes when you were royalty and you received tribute, and you remember lifetimes when you were priests and you received offerings, and you remember lifetimes when you were merchants and you received payment, and across all time and all incarnations you have always been a receiver, and this is your eternal identity, and I have always received. And it cannot be otherwise. And now these words become law in your personal universe. And just as gravity is law in the physical universe, receiving is law in your personal universe. And you do not hope to receive, and you do not try to receive, but you simply receive, because it is law, and laws do not fail, and laws do not waver, and laws are constant and reliable, and it cannot be otherwise. The third time I speak the decree of identity in a voice of command, and you receive it as absolute and unchangeable. And the decree is this: I am a natural receiver, and now these words vibrate at the frequency of divine authority, and they carry the power of creation, and they reshape reality itself. And as I speak them, the quantum field rearranges itself to match the decree, and you become a magnet for money, and you become a channel for abundance, and you become a vessel for divine supply. And I am a natural receiver is not a statement, but a command to the universe, and the universe obeys. I have always received, and now these words echo backward through time and forward into the future, and they create a continuous stream of receiving that has no beginning and no end. And you see your entire timeline from birth to death and beyond. And on that entire timeline, there is an unbroken flow of receiving. And you receive in your youth, and you receive in your old age, and you receive in times of plenty, and you receive in times of seeming lack. Because underneath all appearances, you have always received, and you will always receive, and I have always received, is the truth of your existence. And it cannot be otherwise. And now these words seal everything and make it permanent and irreversible. And once a thing is sealed, it cannot be unsealed. And what God has sealed, let no man unseal. And you are sealed now in your identity as a natural receiver. And this identity will carry you through the rest of your life and beyond. And you will never again doubt that you are provided for. And you will never again fear lack, because it cannot be otherwise is the final stamp of divine authority. And it is the signature of God on your decree. The decree of identity is complete, and now comes the final sealing, and the final sealing is spoken only once, because once is enough, and the final sealing is this: and so it is sealed. And these words mean that everything that has been spoken tonight is now locked into place and cannot be moved and cannot be changed, and what is sealed remains sealed, and your financial abundance is sealed, and your divine supply is sealed, and your identity as a receiver is sealed, and the seal is made of light, and the seal is eternal, and the seal is protected by all the forces of heaven and earth. And so it remains, and these words mean that this seal does not weaken over time, but remains at full strength forever. And whether you remember this teaching or forget this teaching, the seal remains. And whether you believe or doubt, the seal remains. And whether you are awake or asleep, the seal remains, because it is not dependent on your consciousness, but exists independent of you in the eternal now. And it cannot be otherwise. And these words are the final lock and the final word, and there is nothing more to say, because everything has been said, and there is nothing more to do, because everything has been done, and you can rest now, completely and fully, because it is finished, and it is done, and it cannot be otherwise. And so it is. Now you can continue resting, and you do not need to wake up, and you do not need to remember any specific words, because everything that needed to enter has already entered, and it has entered at the deepest level of your being, and it is now part of you. And when you wake, whether that is in 1 hour or 8 hours, you will be different, and you will not be able to explain how you are different, but you will feel it, and you will notice that you think differently about money, and you speak differently about money, and you expect money to come, and when it comes, you will not be surprised, but you will recognize it as the natural result of who you are. Everything that needed to happen tonight has happened, and the seed has been planted, and the seal has been spoken, and the decree has been made. And now the only thing left is to allow the manifestation to unfold in divine timing. And divine timing is always perfect and always right, and your job is not to figure out how or when, but simply to live your life and watch for signs and receive each sign with gratitude, and stay open and stay expectant and stay in the identity of receiver. If you choose to loop this teaching and listen to it again while you sleep, that is perfect, because each time you listen, the seal grows stronger and the decree goes deeper and the identity becomes more solid. And some people listen to this teaching every night for 7 nights, and some people listen for 21 nights, and some people listen for 90 nights, and each person knows how long they need to listen, and you will know too, because there will come a night when you no longer feel the need to listen, and on that night you will know that the work is complete. When you wake in the morning or when you wake in the middle of the night, do not be surprised if you find yourself speaking words of abundance and gratitude, because your subconscious has been programmed and it will speak through you. And when you speak these words, your reality will shift to match them, and money will begin to flow, and opportunities will begin to appear, and doors that were closed will open, and you will remember this night, and you will remember these words, and you will know that everything I told you is true. Rest now, and receive now, and be at peace, because it is finished, and it is done, and it cannot be otherwise, and you are sealed in divine supply, and you are sealed in infinite abundance, and you are sealed in perfect provision, and nothing can break this seal, and nothing can stop this flow. And when you wake, you will wake richer, not in hope, but in truth, because the invisible has already shifted, and the visible will soon follow. And so it is.